"There's something you should know. Something terrifying happened at the office where I used to work. It was so disturbing that I decided to resign, even though I didn't have another job lined up. I had a family to support, but no amount of money was worth staying there after what I heard." The events I'm about to tell you didn't happen to me personally, but to a coworker of mine. For privacy reasons, let's call her Meriam. It all started one day when I showed up to work and found the office doors locked. That was strange. I tried calling some of my coworkers, and they told me we'd been told not to come in that day because there was going to be a criminal investigation. A criminal investigation in our office? What could have possibly happened? That's when I learned about the bizarre and chilling events that unfolded. Meriam worked late one night. Our job sometimes required us to stay late, and she had volunteered to finish some work by herself that night. I remember that Friday very clearly. It was the last workday of the week, and we all said goodbye to her as we left for the weekend. She told us she was going to finish her tasks and head home, but when we came back on Sunday, the office was locked. That's when we found out that Meriam had disappeared. According to our manager, they'd reviewed the security footage from that night to figure out what happened. What they saw was unsettling. Meriam was working late, like she said she would, but something seemed off. She looked tense, anxious, like she was constantly glancing over her shoulder. It was as if she felt someone was there with her, even though the office was supposed to be empty. In the footage, they saw her close her laptop and get up to go to the office kitchen. She made herself a cup of tea and then walked back to her desk to continue her work. But that's when things started to get strange. As Meriam worked late into the night, something strange happened. She suddenly turned around, her movements sharp and uneasy. It was as if she felt someone standing behind her, or maybe caught a glimpse of something in a reflection. From that moment on, her demeanor completely changed. The surveillance footage showed her pacing around the office, clearly on edge. She would get up frequently, leaving her desk to check different parts of the building. First, she went to the bathroom, then to the kitchen. After that, she walked toward one of the other offices. It was like she was searching for something, or maybe someone. Hours passed, and the footage showed her returning to her desk. She closed her laptop and started gathering her things, but her body language gave her away. She was terrified. It was obvious that she wanted to leave, but she wasn't calm. She looked frantic, as if she was being chased by something only she could see. Meriam made her way to the elevator, clutching her bag tightly. The footage showed her anxiously glancing left, right, and behind her as she waited for the elevator doors to open. And then the first strange thing happened. The elevator, which should have been quick, it was a small office building after all, took an unusually long time to arrive. There was no one else in the building, no reason for the delay. When the doors finally opened, she stepped in, clearly shaken. The elevator's security camera caught everything. As she stood inside, clutching her bag, the light for the 6th floor suddenly turned on by itself. Meriam hadn't pressed any button, but the elevator began moving on its own. The footage showed her frozen in fear. She gripped her bag tighter, her knuckles white, and her eyes darted around the small enclosed space. When the elevator reached the 6th floor, the doors opened, but Meriam didn't step out. And then it happened, the terrifying moment that no one could explain. The elevator camera had audio recording, and the manager later shared what it captured. Meriam suddenly let out a piercing scream, one so loud and filled with terror that it sent chills down everyone's spine. It was as if she had seen death itself standing before her. She was still holding her cup of tea, clutching it so tightly that it hadn't spilled. But in the blink of an eye, the camera cut out. When it came back online seconds later, the elevator was empty. The cup of tea lay shattered on the floor, and Meriam was gone. For 2 days, no one knew what had happened to her. She was reported missing by her family, who said the last place she was seen was at work on Friday night. That's why the office was closed when I showed up that Sunday. Meriam's disappearance had triggered a criminal investigation. The office stayed closed for 2 weeks. When we finally returned, no one was the same. Something had changed. The office no longer felt safe, especially at night. Employees began refusing to work night shifts altogether. Those who tried would hear strange noises. Our desks were overturned. Papers were scattered everywhere, covered in a foul-smelling liquid. The smell was so awful that it made some of us gag. To this day, no one knows what the substance was or how it got there. From that point on, no one dared to work night shifts, and the company eventually canceled them altogether. Whatever happened to Meriam that night, it left a permanent mark, not just on the office, but on all of us who worked there. Over time, the situation at the company only got worse. One by one, employees started resigning. The eerie events and the sense of unease made it impossible for anyone to feel safe. The resignations piled up so quickly that the company had no choice but to relocate. They decided to move to an entirely new building, leaving behind the one where it all happened. And honestly, it wasn't surprising. 90% of what went on in that place just wasn't natural. To this day, we still don't know what happened to our friend Meriam. She vanished under such mysterious circumstances, and no one could explain why she was the one targeted. I can't help but wonder, if I had been the one working the night shift that day, could it have been me instead of Meriam? That thought has haunted me ever since. It's become a recurring nightmare, imagining myself in her place, disappearing into thin air without any explanation. And that's where Meriam's story ends. It's a story that's both heartbreaking and terrifying, filled with questions that still have no answers. I pray that wherever Meriam is, she's okay, that it was all something small and simple, though deep down, I fear that's not the case. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about Meriam's story and how strange it all was? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the story, or at least found it as chilling as I did. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support the channel. It really helps us a lot. Until then, see you in the next story.